What is up, everybody? Welcome to episode number 32 of Bettin N Boozin here on the HHH Racing Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Roscoe, and what an unbelievable weekend we had last weekend. If you guys followed the podcast on both Saratoga today with me and Patrick and our Del Mar show last week, hopefully you guys cashed because we ended up cashing some pretty good tickets. I'll go over here in a second just to pat ourselves in the back a little bit. But looking ahead to this weekend, let alone last weekend, but this weekend at Saratoga, they have an 11 race card on a Friday, including the grade 2 Amsterdam Stakes that we will be talking about, going over the Late Pick5. And then after that talk with my co-hosts, Patrick and Charlie, we'll be inviting Jim Miller back on Bettin N Boozin for the second week running to talk about the Late Pick4 at Hawthorne tomorrow, Thursday, July 27th. Like I said, for Hawthorne, and then tomorrow for the flagship show. This is a major show that I will also be touching on later because we have a very, very special guest. You'll see it scrolling on the bottom of the screen right now. But tomorrow, Howard, Pete, and Paul will be going over the Late Pick5 at Del Mar for Saturday for Bing Crosby Day and the Bing Crosby Stakes and the San Diego Handicap Stakes. So it's going to be a great show for Del Mar, but we have a very special guest, as I said before. Frank Miramati will be live tomorrow, Thursday night, with Howard, Pete, and Paul on the flagship show, going over how Frank got into broadcasting and everything about him. If you want to see Frank Miramati live, smash that like button and smash that subscribe button to not miss out on any new shows. And that leads me right into the good stuff. So again, scrolling on the bottom of the screen, bettinandboozin@gmail.com is my email. Please email me with any questions, comments, concerns. If you're more of an audio listener, go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor. We post every single episode of Bettin N Boozin, as well as every other episode that goes up on the HHH Racing Podcast. Post to these three audio platforms: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor. Rate, review, and subscribe over there. The HHH Racing Podcast Power Picks. Guys, like I said, these have just been on fire recently. We're still climbing that ROI back up to what it was last year. We ended with a 2.65 ROI at the end of the year of 2022. In 2023, we're now up to 2.34 ROI. Anything over $2 is a profit, and you're getting profitable pick sheets for $4 a weekend. It's $15.99 a month, which is how Patreon bills it. But $4 a weekend, you get 4 sheets, 2 tracks on each Power Picks. And guys, if you're not subscribed, you're missing out for a very cheap and profitable tip sheet. Patreon.com/HHH Racing Podcast. The link is below my face here or down in the description box below. And as well as regular Power Picks, we have our Saratoga only Power Picks going on still until tomorrow night. Howard will be sending them out early, so you're going to want to get in as soon as possible for Saratoga Power Picks, as he's going to Saratoga this weekend to watch 2 of his horses run, as well as Whitney Day next weekend, where we will all be there, minus Charlie because he's born. But if you have not subscribed to the Saratoga only Power Picks, please go to hhhracingpodcast.com, the Power Picks tab on the top of the screen when you see it, and it'll bring you directly to the page. It is $14.99 if you're a current normal Power Pick subscriber. You get the whole weekend for $15. Again, that's 3 full card analysis. That's ABCs, spot plays, any other caveman pick 5s, all analysis for every single race on a given day we cover. Again, that's $15. That's $5 a day for current Power Pick subscribers. And for the full week and for the weekend slate for non-current Power Pick subscribers, that is $19.99. Guys, please go subscribe again, hhhracingpodcast.com. But without further ado, guys, like I said, we're just going to get right into it here. We're going to go over a few bets that we hit last weekend, just go over a little bit of success to kind of get you guys ready for this weekend at Saratoga. But without further ado, going to bring on my co-host right now from the East Coast, New Jersey, Patrick Kunsel, and from Chicago, chilling in the bed, Charlie Freeman. Boys, what's going on?
Nothing much. How we doing?
Charlie?
Oh, yeah. Well, I was just waiting to see if Patrick had anything more to say to try to avoid the subject. But yeah, we're doing good in the comfort of the only place quiet enough because, I'm doing all I can to make sure there's no background noise. So going to the depths of my own bed because it's the only place that's quiet this late in my house.
No,
But yeah, I'll take the shit. It's all good.
that's
I'm
gonna be
rolling
a
with it.
great running joke for until you go back to school. Because hey, when you're cool, calm, and collected, there's no better place to start gambling. But Charlie,
somebody
what's up,
pointed
buddy?
it out in the chat that he was in bed, and I never realized it until somebody did. So it's funny
I thought it was pretty obvious.
yeah.
Hey, nothing gives it away, Charlie, except the pillow in your back. I mean, that's literally what it is that gives it away. But last weekend, guys, we had a very nice weekend. Me and you, Patrick, on Saratoga today, we gave out 3 winners out of 5 races, totaling, I believe, every horse was above 5-2 that we gave out. So again, just rapid fire. But last weekend, if you were following Bettin N Boozin for Del Mar, I gave out a winning double. It was 5-7 with 1 in the last race. And once I can finally pull it up, there we go. 5-7 with 1. This was the number 5 Sir Atticus that ended up winning. My top pick, which was the 7 horse, didn't run a lick and also got a pretty bad trip. And the twist just absolutely blew the doors off them in the last. So if you played my doubles, that was a 27-20 for $2 on the double for my best bet last weekend. So congratulations to anyone who cashed last weekend. And like I said, if you don't watch the Saratoga Today shows, we cover every single weekend card in a live show on this podcast, or on this podcast channel, HHH Racing Podcast on YouTube. We cover every single weekend card for Saratoga. So everyone, again, smash that subscribe button so you don't miss these shows. And one more shout out before we get into the Late Pick 5 and get into the chat. Carlin's Way Racing has a horse running tomorrow at Saratoga. It is in race number 10 on Thursday. It is a 449.5 allowance race, N1X, that he ends up qualifying for. It is the number 2 Richie in the 10th race, morning line 12-1, but his numbers realistically are competitive with other horses in this race. And granted, it was state bred optional claiming, but last time he had Louis on him, he ended up going straight to the lead, never looking back, and winning by 1 1/4. So I just wanted to give a quick shout out to the boys back home, Crowns Way Racing. Good luck tomorrow with Richie, as we did get a winner today at Belterra Park with Jones Way, who, after going 0 for 21, she seems to finally found her winning foot. But good luck to the boys with Tony Rollo and all the other guys out there at Crowns Way Racing with Richie tomorrow. But going right to the chat real quick, guys, and we'll get right into this Late Pick 5 at Saratoga. Christine Race is here. Of course she is. Thanks so much, Christine, for joining the show. Greatly appreciate it. Richard Avalar is here. Good evening, gentlemen. Happy hump day. Absolutely. And you have a horse for Del Mar this weekend. Hey, if it's Saturday, you feel free to say it here. Oh, he did. The horse is Enderly, owned by Little Fred Feather Racing, friends of Howard and the podcast. So good luck with Enderly. Because is that what day is that? Is that Saturday? Richard, if that's Saturday, be sure to tell Howard that, because like I said, they're running the Del Mar show tomorrow. Simon O'Neill, thanks so much for joining the show. My friend Michael Lawson is here. Thanks so much for joining the show. And like I said, there's a lot of other people watching right now but haven't commented in the chat. Guys, we're going to go to the chat a lot today. It's going to be a big discussion, hopefully. So every I see Jim, and the Jim's already starting with the Charlie in the bed jokes. I love it. I love every second about it. But guys, if you have already looked at the PPs for Wednesday, they've been out since yesterday, I believe. Be sure to comment your picks in the chat and who you think is going to win, as we bring up every single comment that goes in. I would say 99% of comments that go into the chat for whether it's your picks or you're trying to start a discussion or anything, please comment in the live chat. We would love to have you on the screen. But guys, like I said, without further ado, we're going to get right into it today. And stupid me, realistically speaking, I started race 6 because I can't count. I can't count to 5 apparently. So I ended up doing race 6, which is where I actually had a very good opinion in the race. So I'm going to start there real quick. It's going to take me 2 minutes, and then we'll move on to the actual Late Pick 5. but since I did the work, I'm going to talk about it basically. So race number 6 is a maiden special weight, $136,000, going 1 mile and 3/8 on the turf. I mean, you don't really see this any other place by Saratoga, but I'm going to go over my top pick, which is the number 1 Swore. The number 1 Swore last time at Belmont in 1.25 miles, early July, with Flavian up, got a pretty decent trip. But I wanted to show this gallop out real quick. Like I said, this is 1.25 miles. They're going just a little bit farther in 1 mile and 3/8. And Swore is going to be in the middle, in between horses. You'll see he's the number 8 right here. Breaks to the middle. Doesn't necessarily get a bad trip by any means. But I'm going to go to the top of the stretch right here, and you'll see him. He's dropped a little bit farther back out here. You're going to see he's going to start to get going at about just before the 8th pole. You see he cuts inside here. Truly Quality just had the easiest trip of them all. No one ever looked like a winner but him. But you'll see the numbers 8, Swore, is finally starting to get his run at about the 8th pole. They passed the 16th pole. He's still coming. But again, you're never going to catch Truly Quality. He actually ends up just getting third by about a neck. But this gallop out is what I want to highlight here. They pan on the finish line for about 50 seconds, it seems like. But you'll see the number 8, Swore, is going to gallop out way past these other 2 horses. So, and these are really nice, allowance company horses. So I'm very interested in the number 1 in race 6 on Friday. The number 1 Swore at morning line of 4-1 for Gaffleone and Motion. Guys, like I said, since I can't count, I wanted to go over that race real quick. But race number 7 is what starts the Late Pick 5 on Friday. It is an allowance 95,000 going 5.5 furlongs on the turf. We all know, guys, if we're covering a sequence, it of course has to start with a 5.5 furlong turf sprint on the Mellon course. But a full field of 11 with 2 MTOs. The weather looks pretty good out in Saratoga. The turf is finally firming up. They made a comment about with the jumpers today, that they ran like a grade 3 or something like that today for the jumpers, and it was 3.5 seconds faster than the grade 1 that they ran last week. So the turf is finally firming up, and hopefully the weather stays dry so we can get fast and firm for Friday. But like I said, it's a full field of 11 with 2 MTOs. The morning line favorite is the number 7, City Mischief, off the layoff for Irad and Mark Cassie. And I'm going to switch the banners right now into race 7. And 2 of you are going against the morning line favorite with the second choice, Disarmed, for Joel Rosario and Rudy Rodriguez. Patrick, I'm going to have you go first as you're first on the chopping block on the screen. You like Disarmed to beat the morning line favorite?
Yeah, I do. I just think Disarmed, with the turf speed that it's shown in its last 2 races, I think could be dangerous in this spot, because I don't think it's evident who else will go as speed that has pure turf speed, to be honest. So I think Disarmed could get loose with Joel. And I think the 5.5 furlongs suits this horse even better, going a little bit shorter than the previous 7 and then 6. I think the 5.5 should fit perfectly. And, faced my Sea Cottage last time, who came back and won recently at Saratoga. So I think this horse is at 3-1 with a favorite that is coming off a long layoff. I'm going to take my shot with Joel Rosario and Rudy Rodriguez.
Yeah, and I won't say what I was going to say. I won't let the
No.
intrusive thoughts win, but I'm going to put them to the side. This horse has really showed up on turf. Charlie, I'll let you touch on him in a second. But Disarmed, these last 2 races have been miles ahead of what he's ran before, and it's been in pretty good, allowance company, Charlie.
Yeah, it seems like he's really started to turn around the form. Not that the form, was necessarily awful. It wasn't like, oh, God, this horse might need a layoff. But certainly wasn't anything eye-catching or anything that, screams to bet this horse. And, if you look at the prices on the right side, you can kind of see that the public felt that way too. But you can tell, obviously, running last time out in a very decent allowance race, and you see jumping from 16-1 to about 6 to 7-1 next race, shows the public believed in the horse taking a step forward. And I believe that the horse will take another step forward, as Patrick kind of touched on my main points, and that this horse beat my Sea Cottage, who I actually had a bet on that day, and was obviously came back to be a very impressive horse. And I'm guessing I know what your intrusive thoughts are. I'm not afraid to share them. Maybe I'm wrong, but the fact that this horse was able to get to the lead with Joel Rosario, who's not the aggressive type and usually tries to pull the horse away to make sure they don't win, shows that this horse certainly has enough early natural speed that it doesn't really matter who the rider is. But on a more serious note, obviously Joel has done well with this horse. You've seen the 2 races where the horse woke up, it was with Joel aboard. So I'm actually kind of happy that Joel's on, at least with this horse, because he seems to have figured out how to ride Disarmed. And I think Disarmed, as Patrick mentioned, not only just looks the best and is tough, but again, we're talking about a 2-1 favorite who's coming off quite a big layoff. So we don't know where this horse will be.
Yeah, and like I said, he does have a lot of natural early speed, but there's also a lot of other natural early speed in this race, it seems like. But obviously with a 5.5 furlong turf sprint, you're going to get that. Charlie, you have my top pick in second, which is the morning line favorite. Patrick has this horse nowhere, which I guess I also see. Realistic, this is one of those horses that I feel like is either going to come back at 5 and win for fun, or come back at 5 and shit the bed and needs one more. I mean, the 85 buyer figure realistically is above the rest of this field. And if he can run back to that 85 buyer at Gulfstream, I think he has a very good shot. I like that he's drawn towards the outside while not fully on the outside. I also think City Mischief is a little bit tactical, where he doesn't necessarily need the lead, but he does his best running on the lead. So I would like for Irad to be aggressive, which I'm sure he will, as Irad always is. But if he takes back a little bit and he's willing to sit back behind the early speed, I honestly almost like it more, just based on like that win at Fairgrounds with Declan Carroll up. I mean, that's exactly what I would love to see. Maybe not so far back, but I would love to see City Mischief sit in behind off the layoff, hopefully rate a little bit and go by the speed at the top of the stretch. Like I said, I just like that this horse is versatile, gets Irad, gets Cassie. I would not take this horse at anything. Honestly, at a win bet, I probably wouldn't take this horse at anything below 3-1. So maybe a win bet wouldn't be on the cards for a horse off the layoff like this, but to be able to, pair in doubles and stuff like that, I think City Mischief is extremely interesting on top. But Charlie, you have this horse in second. And I'll let you finish up with the 3, and then Patrick will let you finish up with your top 3. Charlie, anything else you want to hit on with the number 7 City Mischief?
Yeah, I think you touched on it. I mean, from a form perspective, if City Mischief returns to the form that we saw before the big layoff, obviously this horse is very live and can and should win, arguably. But for me, I'm a little concerned if the horse potentially needs one. As you mentioned, maybe I played this horse in an exacta box with the 5, because for me, that's why I'm kind of surprised and happy that Patrick also believes in the 3. I went for a long shot in third because I think this really is a 2-horse race. For me, I think Disarmed is on the improve, and out of all the horses with recent form, looks much the best. So it really comes down to, does City Mischief, return to that form and dominate like you mentioned, or does the horse maybe need a race, or maybe does the horse run solid but Disarmed continues to take steps forward and proves too tough to beat? For me, again, also because of the connections, I think it is kind of interesting that Mark Cassidy got the horse back, because you can see, used to be trained by Mark Cassidy, then brought the horse back. So clearly he believes in the horse. I think City Mischief could run huge, but personally, I'd rather take the value on Disarmed. And then going into the 3, and I'll let Patrick touch on the 3 as well. I was just looking for some value. I think Brendan's War has run 2 decent races off the pretty long layoff and could take another step forward. Has worked decently as well. Obviously, I'm a big fan going all the way back to the Derby of Javier Castellano, and I love the value. I'm not saying the horse has some eye-catching figures, but I think in this field, this horse is not a 20-1 horse. I certainly think this is one for me that I would be playing in the exactas or trifectas. Definitely one where, if you have a strong feeling on the 5 or 7 to win and you want to make some more money, why not stick a horse like the 3 underneath? I'll let Patrick touch on a little more. I'm guessing that was also kind of the angle he saw.
Yeah, exactly right. And I just think in a 5.5 furlong turf sprint, stuff can happen. And Javier Castellano is very well known to be great in these turf sprints. And a horse that's 20-1 morning line, that a horse has, I've thought has improved somewhat, and beat a couple horses last out who have actually come back and won races, not as high profile as this race. I'm not saying this race is a high profile, but just not as big as this race. Brennan's War, I think at 20-1 is a decent bet to hit the board.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's a lot of horses in this race. I think what's scaring people is the 1 for 15. Obviously, finally got the win last time out in a state-bred claimer. Now jumps up to allowance company. But if the speed's breaking down, or this horse just ends up getting a good trip from the inside, if he improves, if Brennan's War improves, he definitely could be in there. But based on figures alone, he would need to improve. But Patrick, go ahead, wrap up with the number 10 Feathers Road, who Matthew Chimura in the chat actually said the number 10 is a must use right now. Throw out anything from that barn at your own risk. I mean, Linda Rice is winning at 32% out of 31 starts. She's 10 for 31. Jose Ortiz picks up the mound. He's had it the last 2 times.
Everywhere she places her horses, they run big. It's unbelievable. And I agree. You can't leave this horse off, in my opinion. The horse has the figures that, fit in this race. So we'll see. But she's just been finding spots for horses. And I will guarantee you this horse will not be 8-1 morning line.
Yeah. I mean, look, he's not that far off. Like Feathers Road, I mean, realistically, off of Honors Among Men, but it was on dirt of an 87, 85 for City of Mischief. I mean, he doesn't have to improve as much as some other horses in this spot. So the number 8 Feathers Road, if he gets the trip, which would be that stalking style behind the speed, I like that he's drawn to the outside. So again, and as you and Matthew Chimura stated, I mean, Linda Rice, throw out that barn at your own risk right now. If I was playing a horizontal play, number 10 Feathers Road probably would be a use for me. But my last top pick, and then we'll move on, is number 6 Carissa for David Donk and John Velasquez. This is another one of those horses where definitely need to improve, but if the pace falls apart on the front end, I think Carissa is one of them to pick up the pieces. He has been going longer, but has shown that he is viable going short at 5.5, like in the maiden special weight. His first time out, he was able to close into a hot pace and lost to a head to Feathers Road. I'm just looking for more value in the spot underneath. And by Big Brown of all horses, we love to see it. I think Crease is very interesting if the pace melts down. But I'm going 7-5-6. Patrick's going 3-5-3-10, and Charlie's going 5-7-3. And I did want to shout out Paul because I do see Paul Halloran in the chat giving out a price
taking
play.
shots at.
And yeah, both the grandpas are going at each other. It's fun to see when both the guys are in the chat. But Howard and Paul, thanks guys for joining the show. Greatly appreciate it. Not to mention that he says that Linda won 3 more races today, so she's winning it over a 30%.
Little controversial in the last, but we'll.
Well, yeah, I went over that too. And I didn't see it now. Howard's gonna come back at me, but yeah, I commented in the chat. Yeah, that last race I wasn't gonna touch on because there's a lot of different mixed opinions on that one. So I would. I'll leave it at that. But race number 8, guys, moving on here, as we do have, like I said, a guest that's coming on later. It's a $50,000 claimer going 7 furlongs on the dirt, draws a field of 9. And as I switch to the Equibase right now, the morning line favorite is all the way to the outside, I believe. Correct? Yes. The number 9, Prove Right for Louis Saez and John Chapman, name you don't see very much. And 2 of us are going with the number 9 morning line favorite. Me and Patrick are going with the number 9. Charlie, on the other hand, is going with a longer shot in the field. The number 2, Midnight Trouble for Tally Gaffleone and Peter Walder. Charlie, my friend, you up first. What do you like most about Midnight Trouble?
So I'm proud to say that I easily crushed and beat the chalk eating weasel allegations just now. I'm a little disappointed that you had the 2 in second. I thought I was going to be a little more creative with it. But yeah, for me, out of the sequence we're covering today, this is the race where I feel like if you want to look for a price, not to just like finish in the money, but to win, I think this is the one to look at. I think the favorites are decent, but they haven't really proven anything. The reason why I love Midnight Trouble is the horse has a lot of early speed, but also, again, as we talk about with being tactical and versatile, the horse has shown some ability to be able to sit like just off the pace as well. But the horse has been working very sharply lately with a 48-1, 47-3, 48-4 for the recent July workouts. You see, obviously, the horse was on a big layoff and ran in some tough stuff. Ran in a $100,000 stakes race, ran in a grade 2. And then, after that long layoff, comes back on June 4th and, ended up falling apart, weekend, was towards the front early on. But really what I'm just kind of banking on and hoping for with this horse is, again, in a race where there is no clear-cut convincing horse to me, why not take a chance on one that's second back off the layoff for a decent trainer? Obviously, I also have my bias towards Tyler. The horse, again, looks like it's working forwardly. And I just thought, again, this was a good spot for maybe Midnight Trouble to pull off a solid win at a decent price.
Yeah, and then like you said, second off the layoff coming out of, they had high hopes for this horse, right? I mean, racing in listed stakes at Delaware, then moves over to Aqueduct to run in the Remsen. I mean, like that's first off the trainer switch for Peter Walder. So Peter had very high hopes for this horse, didn't pan out, goes back to Optional Claiming Company, runs 7 behind. So hopefully coming down to the claiming level, I think Midnight Trouble could definitely be interesting. And obviously I have him second at 8-1 morning line. And I do agree with you, Charlie, that he is interesting. Patrick, I'll let you go through your top 3 here, and then I'll let Charlie touch on his top 3. The number 9, Prove Right, is the morning line favorite. Just very unconvincing efforts, but the Bayshore, the Chick Lang, and the Dwyer, I mean, losing the horses just all over the place. I mean, Gilmore, Joey Freshwater, who were in the Amsterdam later in the featured race on this card. I mean, Rivet, it was also in the Amsterdam, Prince of Jericho, Fort Bragg, Saudi Crown. I mean, just horse after horse after horse. Yes, there you go. Patrick, I see Howard's in the chat try to give you G-Men love, even though I will never get you there. But the number 9, Prove Right, for James Chapman and Louis Saez.
Yeah, you find it interesting because, like you said, you rattled off those graded stakes that Prove Right ran in, and you really can't find any excuses. I mean, the horse was 58-1 in the Dwyer, 45-1 in the race in Pimlico. So it's just, you try and figure out, but this drop down to me just seems like, Chapman's trying to find a win at Saratoga, and that's what a lot of trainers do. You drop down a tremendous amount to get a win. So I just think in this field, Luis Saez, who's a great rider on the lead, Prove Right should sit the right trip and be tough to beat.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's easily the most deserving favorite. Whether he's been running in the Chick Lang and the Dwyer. I mean, James Chapman's always had high hopes for this horse. Excuse me, he ran in the Withers, he ran in the Remsen, the Nashua last year. I mean, he's always been trying to get him that big win, but never really could. So I think dropping him down to where he belongs and where he can definitely get a win. I love that he draws the outside in this spot. I think he's much better on the lead, but doesn't necessarily need to be only on the lead. I think he can press from the outside, which is why I like drawing the 9 hole in this spot. Luis Saez being the perfect rider, in my opinion, for this horse. He will be aggressive out of the gate, get out to the outside, and hopefully have enough coming down the lane to draw off. I agree with you, Patrick, in the number 9, Prove Right, but I'll let you finish up here. The number 8, Joking Way. Again, Linda Rice claim for herself last time out off of Asmussen at Ellis Park. Like I said, that it should have to improve a little bit, but the numbers do fit.
Yeah, exactly. And, I'm going to tell you that I think this horse does improve off the second start for Linda. And I mean, I think that's crazy because coming from Steve Asmussen, Winchell Thoroughbreds, that's, you wouldn't think you'd be saying that. But at this rate, I mean, I think you have to say it. And I just think this horse faced Good Heart last out, who came back and won a starter allowance race, which would be above this race. So I think Joking Way has got a decent shot, but does have to improve. And, it's second off a long layoff.
Yeah, but that's the second off a decent layoff off the claim for Linda Rice. Horse ran a bullet last time at last workout at Belmont. Ran really well at Oaklawn, but the 76s, I don't know if it's enough to beat this field right now. But coming to the Linda Rice barn, the horse definitely has the chance to improve and will sit that stalking trip that everyone desires. So hopefully Joking Way can get up into the spot where he needs to go. But Patrick, finish it off. You have the number 4, Warrior Richard, who none of us have in our top 3 for Robbie Falcone Jr. and Ricardo Santana.
Yeah, I was trying to find somebody underneath in third, and I just Robbie Falcone has a good stat. Coming from going from a route to sprint, he's hitting at 22%, and I just felt like with Ricardo on board, he seemed, he's aggressive, and sometimes he makes moves that you question, but a lot of the times he puts horses in good spots that you wouldn't think would be put in that spot. And I just think Warrior Richard might be a good shot underneath.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, he'll sit that stalking trip behind a pretty decent amount of speed in this spot. Just looking back at those 2 races at Aqueduct where he broke his maiden and then came out in claiming company to win next time out, being just 2 lengths, a length and a half off of off of it. So Warrior Richard is definitely interesting if Ricardo Santana can work out a trip. Charlie, going to you next. You have the 7 and the 9 that we talked about, but mainly the 7 I want you to talk about. Off the claim for maker, picks up IRAD Street Swag at 5-1 morning line.
Yeah, all I really have, because you guys already touched on it with the 9, is I do think the 9's interested and tough in this spot. The real concern I just have, though, is the horse's figures for a horse that's been running as often as it has aren't that impressive for me. They just don't really do it. I know they're the best in the field, but I just feel like if a horse is being in these kind of races and running this often, I would really like to see that significant improvement. And I'm a little worried that the horse could maybe continue to run in like the high 70s, low 80s, but maybe that's kind of it for this horse. Whereas, again, that's why I looked for more upside with the 2, who, ran a 73 and second time out could easily take a big jump forward. But then, I was a little surprised that neither of you had the 7 anyway, just because when you see the connections of Irad Ortiz with Michael Maker, and you see who this horse has been ridden by, John Velasquez, Tyler Gaffleone, Jareth Loveberry, some of the best jockeys in the world. So obviously this is a horse that most of the top jockeys, wherever the horse runs, want to get on. So for me, that was really my angle with this horse was, look, the figures aren't too bad. Maybe the horse takes a step forward. I like Michael Maker a lot as a trainer. Again, if it's a horse that top jockeys are continuously trying to ride, clearly they see something in Street Swag for potential wise. And I don't think you'll get 5-1 in this field, but I do like those odds as well. And again, like I said, with my top 2 picks going with an 8-1 and 5-1, I just feel like if the favorite really hasn't done anything to prove that it deserves to, be a clear-cut convincing winner, why not look for some other prices that you could work around? And, if it does end up being 2-7 or 7-2, or either of them finish with a 9, that could be a very solid return.
Yeah, I mean, you're not 100% wrong. The one pushback I will have is just, to me, for a trainer like Brendan Walsh, who's a very good trainer, it just seems slow. Like Street Swag has had that opportunity in both claiming company and allowance company to show what he's made of. He won the starter allowance at Keeneland. Going longer at Ellis Park might be the downfall. Shorting back up here, but Maker claims him for 75 in June at Ellis. Then you haven't seen the horse for a month and a half. Now he drops him for 50, which is 25,000 less than what they bought him for. And he's going to need to improve, and the horse is going to take money. That, for me, that's just enough to stay away. He's definitely a candidate to win. But for me, if this horse is going to take money and needs to improve off of a claim where they're posting less for what they just bought him for last race, that's a few too many red flags for me. Like I said, a horse that's going to be low odds. But Charlie, I completely see your thinking. And like for the number 9, I just think the massive drop in company that he's going to face, I think, is what's going to help him the most. I'm going 9-2-8. Patrick's going 9-8-4. Charlie's going 2-7-9. Guys, switching up to the 9th race, it is a $50,000 claiming non-winners of 2 a lifetime, going a mile on the inner turf course, a full field of 10 with 3 MTOs on the outside. The morning line favorite is the outside horse, the number 10, Ski Patrol, for Irad Ortiz and Jonathan Thomas. And guys, I'll tell you what, this is the one race where we all agree in the top 2 horses. Wow. Some of us in all of the top 3. As I switch over the picks right now, Patrick and I are completely the same with 10-8-3. Charlie has the same top 2 going 10-8-6. There's your chalk eating weasel, by the way. 1, 2, 3. But anyway, Charlie, Patrick, you are going first as Charlie went first last race. The number 10 Ski Patrol in this spot. He looks very, very good.
Yeah, he does. And, this is interesting because I'm pretty sure it's Jonathan Thomas's first start actually of the meet, which is interesting to me. And he's been on fire to start the season. This horse's figures just, kind of sit above the rest in this spot. And I love that Irad comes on board because, up at Saratoga, when Irad gets on board, it's, the horse means something. And, the horse's previous races, were had excuses in 2 of them, I thought. But in this spot, this horse should be able to pick out a trip and should be very tough to beat, in my opinion.
I just think this horse has run really well the last 2. Charlie, I'll let you touch on as well, and I'll let you go on to the 8, Charlie. But the number 10 just has been doing a lot in the starter allowance company at Gulfstream. Goes over an Indy, an N1X company, gets to the lead, but doesn't end up winning the race at a pretty solid favorite. I think the drop to claiming company is what this horse needs to be able to get that win. I think Jonathan Thomas drops him and places this horse in this spot. Was looking for this spot, obviously has been off since May. I just think, like I said, with the drop to Claiming Company, I think it's what Ski Patrol needs to win.
Yeah, I think Ski Patrol is extremely tough in this spot. This is, out of our sequence that we're covering, one of the top horses that I'm most confident in for sure, which we'll touch on more later. Again, I just think the figures for this horse tower over this field. I feel like Irad is going to get this horse right. And quite frankly, I just don't think the horse got the right trip last time out. I think in a race where there's a hot pace, to try to have a horse that, at least in my eyes, you can see in the past, in the two strongest figure races, tends to prefer to sit off the pace by 2-3 lengths and then make a move. I think the move was made too early, especially in a pace again that was going as fast as it was. I think maybe the rider just got overconfident and thought, look, I have a horse that's less than even money, and just decided to go for it early. And again, I think that hot pace to try to do that with caught up to the horse. But I think Irad will run the perfect trip with this horse. I think the horse can sit just off the lead like I'm hoping it will, and then we'll blow by this field. I think the 10, I don't want to say it'll win easy because there's some other decent horses, but I think the 10, I don't really think the 10 has any excuse not to win in this spot.
Yeah, I mean, if it's not this time, this is, divorce filing territory for me.
Yeah.
Like, just for me, the drop, I just keep going back. I went through this field multiple times. I just keep going back to the drop, and hopefully, I know it's Saratoga from Indy, but I hope the drop to Claiming Company is what Ski Patrol needs. Number 8, Charlie's Harry Hood for Chad Brown. Gaff Leone has been last race at Ellis, won convincingly in a main special weight out there. Has Galileo breeding. Will need to improve a little bit on the speed figure numbers, but very, very interesting for Chad.
Yeah, I mean, look, when I see the connections of Chad Brown and Tyler Gaffleon, that catches my eye. The horse has obviously worked out well. And yeah, I know the figures aren't anything crazy, but this horse has shown, at least showed last time out, the ability to get to the lead. And while obviously the horse didn't win going away, you obviously know in these longer distance races, I tend to not like speed horses, but I do when they show the ability to hold up. And again, I know it was a maiden race, but the horse did show the ability to hold up. I certainly think the horse can take another step forward. Tyler Gaffleon has experience with Harry Hood as well. And real quick, one other thing about the 10, what you were talking about, where it's like it feels like the horse has to win now. That kind of tied into what we covered at Saratoga with Bourbon Chase, or what I covered at Saratoga with Bourbon Chase, where I was kind of talking about how that was like the spot where when I was with Howard, where I was saying the horse absolutely had to win, and then ended up winning comfortably on the dirt. So I kind of think it's the same thing with Ski Patrol. I think obviously there is the risk where when a horse keeps getting put in a spot where you're like, the horse has to get the job done here, and then doesn't, then you give up. But I feel like this is kind of that spot for that horse. But yeah, I think there still is the threat of other horses taking a step forward, which I think we all three agree with the 8. With those connections, if the horse takes another step forward, certainly could be a threat to win. And then moving on to the 6, and then I'll let you two obviously touch on the 3. I was debating, honestly, between putting the 6 or 3 on top. I guess my worry with the 3 was, there's other horses that could obviously not give it too much trouble, but I just feel like the horse might run out of gas. So yeah, my angle with gamers, I like Brendan Walsh as a trainer, as you touched on, a great trainer. Love Luis Saez. He's been running really well lately. The works, again, say yes for this horse. And I just like the versatility. The horse shows, obviously, you can see with the time form, good early and late figures. So this horse can really kind of be put anywhere and still run a decent trip and be in with a shot. So that was kind of my angle with the 6 gamer.
Yeah, I mean, this is for Brendan Walsh, obviously, who had a very, very nice start to the year and a pretty decent start to this early Saratoga meet in a very small sample size. This horse has just been tested on this turf, although very hard spots. Hasn't really been able to get the job done. Drops into 50, claiming for Luis Saez getting the mount. I think this horse can definitely be interesting off the drop, working well on the Oklahoma track. But this horse is going to be one of those taking money that I would rather have the other horses that are lower and try to find someone else underneath, who Patrick and I did with the number 3 Fredo for Antonio Sano and Jose Lascano, second up on his trip up to New York.
Yeah. This horse, somebody said it in the chat, with Lascano on the inner turf, he does really prove to be very well and rides very well on the turf, especially the inner turf up at Saratoga. And this horse does look to be the speed of the speed, which I do not hate, especially on the inner turf, because, people like to take back on that inner turf. Sano doesn't bring too many horses in. When he does, he means well. So I think this horse has a decent shot at 8-1. And in a race that, is kind of just a mixed bag of, if the 10 doesn't show up, who knows what could happen.
Well, absolutely. I mean, this is the horse that's going to catch people sleeping, whether he is on the front end or he gets first run. The 82 figures at Gulfstream are extremely competitive in this field. Sano brings him up to Belmont last time in a very tough allowance race and puts him short for the first time since December. Doesn't really run too well, but brings him back out to a mile here. I think it suits him best. Takes him out of the top company and puts him into $50,000 claiming, where this horse can really shine. I do like Fredo a lot, or Alfredo, whatever. Fredo, tomato, whatever you want to say. But I think he's very interesting, at least underneath, if not on top, at 8-1. But Jim. And then Paul Halloran coming in, Sano 2 for 24 at Saratoga in the last 5 years. Thank you, Paul. Paul's doing his homework, man. Paul's bringing the stats in this field. They said there's a lot of different horses dropping. There's many different ways that you can go in this spot. But I went 10-8-3. Patrick also went 10-8-3. Charlie went 10-8-6. Guys, we're going to try and speed it up here a little bit. The next race is the Amsterdam. It is a field of 6 for the, like I said, for the Grade 2 Amsterdam Stakes. And as I switch over right now, it is going 6.5 furlongs on the Saratoga Dirt Course. The morning lane favorite is the number 1, Drew's Gold, who ran an absolute bang-up race last time in the Woody Stevens for John Chapman, again, who has 2 very solid runners, I think, on this Friday card at 9-5. Gilmore is the second choice in the 4-hole for Irad and Brendan Walsh at 5-2, and Rivet for Ricardo Santana and Asmussen. As I switch over the picks right now, Charlie and I are both going with Drew's Gold on the inside, but Patrick, my friend, Patrick with the big opinion, ladies and gentlemen, the number 6 New York Thunder on the outside for Jorge Delgado, Tyler Gaffleone. Patrick, the floor is yours, my friend. Why do you like the number 6?
Because of the name.
Oh,
it's got New York in it. There's the New York.
No, come on. Well, he's in New York running, so hey, it couldn't be a bad thing. Listen, Delgado, has been picky where he places this horse, and I think that's honestly for a good reason. They talked about how he drew the rail in the Woody Stevens, and I guess Delgado didn't really like that. And the last race, listen, the competition was nowhere near what this race is going to be, but the fractions that the horse posted and the way he was just going so fluidly throughout watching that replay leads me to believe this horse, has more in it and has been sitting on a race. Honestly, it's the first time on a dirt track, which, could be an issue, but I personally, I don't see it as that. I just think that this is one of those horses that's going to show up on Friday and, surprise a lot of people. Then again, I could look at it the other way and just say Drew's Gold is, got more speed. It's just a better horse, but I think New York Thunder is developing into something pretty good.
I mean, if that 97 is any indication, only 3 races, he's working extremely well in the dirt. I think if he continues to improve, New York Thunder is definitely a possibility on the top end. But Charlie, you and I have Drew's Gold on top. And as the very astute gentleman on the Thursday show are pointing out, he's going to get a very different trip in this race. He was all the way on the outside. I'm going to show the replay of the Woody Stevens. I'll let you talk through it. He drew the 13 in that race, and he was able to get up to the outside of Arabian Lion, just not enough, but was still able to run a very good race with a 106. Drew's Gold, like I said, I'm going to start the race right now. Feel free to talk through it or talk about Drew's Gold. Charlie?
Oh, yeah, sorry. It was delayed for me for a second. So for me with Drew's Gold, again, it was just honestly coming off the layoff and then running a 98 and a 106 just after running 83s. It's just mind-blowing to me to be able to take 2 steps that big. The horse is obviously working out tremendously. Jose Ortiz, glad he's okay. After the scary fall, has been riding tremendously. I like no disrespect to the past jockey, but I like in my eyes, a jockey upgrade. Again, I just feel like if the horse runs anywhere near what Drew's Gold has been showing the ability to run, I don't see why Drew's Gold. I mean, I know obviously with the odds is expected to win, but I don't see why the horse shouldn't win. And I do want to touch on, though, at some point, once we get to the underneath picks, one of our guests / kind of co-hosts says potential co-host future for California racing, at least Noah said that Deer District is his play of the day.
Which
So
hey, I
fascinating.
love that because and you'll see Drew's Gold finishing up here. Gilmore's the 12 horse coming on the outside, does not get there in time, but a very nice race from Drew's Gold in the Woody Stevens, earning a 106 buyer. Deer District was a horse that I had in second the entire time off this last race, but other than that last race where he got a very good trip, I mean, that number is nowhere to be found. If he improves again, I mean, this horse, he's by Oscar performance out of a Futsiachi Pegasus mare, something you don't see too much every day. But if he continues to improve off that last effort, he's extremely interesting. And obviously, Charlie, this is your last horse before we get to Gilmore. But feel free to talk about Deer District, then go on to Gilmore.
Yeah, so no, that was my angle with Deer District, was just why not put the horse somewhere underneath and not go full chalk with the top 30 favorites, and really just the angle of, again, we've talked about this show how much we enjoy seeing a horse that takes a big jump forward, and to go from a casual 83, 84, which isn't anything bad, to an eye-popping 97 and winning dominantly after sitting off the pace by 4 lengths to win by 9 lengths. Certainly another step forward like that is enough for Deer District to at least be competitive in this spot. Again, I just think because of the lack of experience against strong competition, did run a respectable second in the Bourbon for a grade 2 race, but that was my only knock on the horse, was the lack of competitive races in recent form. But certainly I don't see, if you do have a strong opinion on one of the heavier favorites, why not throw this horse underneath? You're muted, Kyle. Strike one.
Hey, it would take us 47 minutes. Yep, I know. Take it. I'll take it too. Trust me. Matthew Trimmer says, be careful with Deer District. This was during a period where Darryl Romans was on fire at Churchill, which I don't disagree with by any means. There was a period towards the end of that meet where he was just absolutely on fire. That 97, like I said, just jumps off the page because realistically it's nowhere else. But since he came back to the dirt, Deer District has been on fire. So underneath, I could easily see Deer District coming in. But number 4, Gilmore for you, Charlie. With Brendan Walsh, Irad Ortiz was third in the Woody Stevens, as we pointed out, was closing, but on the Pat Day Mile on the Bayshore, this horse has been facing very, very good company.
Yeah, again, another one that's run really strong, and obviously, as you showed on the replay, which I was going to talk about as well, did a really nice job closing up to Drew's Gold. The only reason I didn't have the horse on top is we are cutting back in distance, which I think, if anything, would favor Drew's Gold more than Gilmore. I think Gilmore kind of 7 furlongs is right where the horse needs to be. Now, I don't think 6.5 is anything where you have to panic. I think Irad will know that about the horse. Obviously, he has a lot of experience riding, and we'll try to make sure probably that Gilmore stays close enough so that the horse doesn't have too much ground to make up, knowing that if Drew's Gold is able to kind of sit that perfect trip and get the first chance to get away, that Gilmore won't get there in time. So I'm guessing he'll be a little bit closer up. But that was kind of my angle. But I think that's kind of thing you have to flip for. That's because those are the only two for me that I think comes down to win is kind of, does Gilmore stay close enough to get the jump, or does Drew's Gold get enough distance away that when it comes to the final stretch, Gilmore can't get there in time? That's how I see the race.
I agreed with you. I thought Gilmore would like a little bit longer. Obviously, he won at Low Sal going a mile. Del Mar, he had enough, but again, just a little bit short. Hasn't won since he ran at that mile.
Sorry, I saw the name.
Yeah, I know, Jose. Yeah. But anyway, either way, Arlington legend, by the way. But I just think he needs a little bit longer. And I think he's going to take a lot of money in this spot. So that was my reason to go against Gilmore. The only other horse that we haven't talked about was the number 5 Rivet for Asmussen and Ricardo Santana, winning the Maxfield last time at Ellis Park on a sloppy track. I actually like the cutback in distance for this horse, although I do think that Rivet is good going longer. It has won 5 in a row, going from the optional claiming to the Bachelor Stakes at Oaklawn, then going to the Chick Lang at Pimlico, then the Maxfield at Ellis. Asmussen's really picked his spots well with this horse. Now throws him into the grade 2 Amsterdam. I think Rivet's extremely interesting. I like the outside draw for Rivet the most. Hopefully he's going to sit off of Drew's Gold, and it's go without too much other speed in this race. I think the number 5 and the number 1 could be the duke out of this race on the top end. But Patrick, I'll kind of throw it to you just kind of openly real quick. Any other stuff you want to touch on before we move on?
No, I think we're good. I hit on New York Thunder. It's going to be tough, but I think the horse has a shot if it improves again. Gilmore could improve for Brendan Walsh. He's a good trainer that is good to improve and has done well at Saratoga so far. And Juice Gold is the class, so we'll see. This should be a fun Amsterdam stake actually on Friday. That's going to be a good race.
I agree. A little bit under the radar with the 6-horse field, but this, I mean, again, very quality and very competitive in this field. I'm going 154. Charlie's going 6-1, or Patrick's going 6-1-4. Charlie's going 1-4-3. Guys, moving on to the last race. But first, I want to give a shout out to Katie. Katie, long time no see, my friend. Thanks so much for joining the show again. Greatly appreciate it. Cheers to you. Hello to you. And thank you again for joining the show. Just want to give a quick shout out. Greatly appreciate it. And also that strike one to Uncle Howard as he gives his first teacher joke of the night that I showed on screen. But and Paul Halloran, thanks again. She said Gilmore worked with Pretty Mischievous last week, who obviously is the Kentucky Oaks winner. So that's not bad company to be in at all. And Katie, we are going over Friday's card at Saratoga. Saturday's card will be live Saturday morning on the HHH Racing Podcast for Saratoga today. Thanks again for joining the show. Moving on again to the last race, we end with everybody's favorites. Going mile, it is at least a mile and a 16th race this time, but Maine claiming 40,000, mile and a 16th on the turf, draws a full field of 12 with 2 also eligibles. The morning line favorite is a lukewarm 7-2, right? Yeah, lukewarm 7-2 on the inside. Timo for Manny Franco and Jonathan Thomas. And I switch over the picks right now. Not a single one of us is going with the morning line favorite. And only 2, I don't even have the horse anywhere. 2 people have the horse in third, in Patrick and Charlie. But Charlie and I both have the number 10 on top, variable cost. Patrick, you are the odd man out, my friend. I do. Actually, we all like this horse, actually. Fast Boat to Sky for John Velasquez and David Donk.
Yeah, don't call me the odd man out. You got him in second now. It's this is a tough race, and I've been trying to stay away from David Donk. I kind of gave him the David Jacobson treatment, where I'm not betting you. I don't care if you have a 1-2 shot until you can win up at Saratoga. But I think Donk has a decent shot in this race. The drop in class could be a major threat. Hopefully Johnny V gets on board this horse. After today's incident, which was pretty scary. The pace, I was looking through the pace here. It's interesting because Fast Boat Sky, he's gonna go Fast Boat Sky, and who's gonna catch the horse? This could be one of those wire to wires. I just think it's 6-1, trying to find an alternate to the favorite. Who I'll just hit on really quick. My opinion on the favorite, just the layoff scares me, and I don't know. Jonathan Thomas, he's gonna have his second start in this race, so he's trying to place his horses. He does, have decent stats when it comes I mean, very good stats when it comes to dropping from maiden special weight to maiden claiming. But in this race, it's, this is a wide open field.
It definitely is obviously reflected by the 7-2 morning line favoritism. I agree with you. I didn't like the layoff, and honestly, I didn't know if I really liked the horse's efforts. I think there's just a lot better horses in this field to take a shot at much better odds. I mean, with the number 2, I agree with you. Fast Boat to Sky, it looks like almost not a pace advantage necessarily, but there's very few horses that want to go out for this lead. And last time, obviously, when this horse has been left alone, Fast Boat to Sky has run really well, although David Donk hasn't done too well to start the meet. So hopefully Fast Boat to Sky can be his first winner on the day. But Charlie, you and I have the number 10 variable cost on top for Linda Rice and Jose Ortiz. Claimed for 40. Linda tries her shot with variable cost at 75,000 in claiming, gets bet down, and the horse gets like wrangled at the break and just doesn't necessarily fire too well out. I like that they're giving this horse the same type of ground going into this next race, and hopefully can improve coming back to the 40,000 claiming.
Yeah, I mean, again, I love the connections as we have kind of touched on. She's been on fire, and Jose Ortiz has been running really well too. I also I know it's not too much, but I feel like any added distance for variable cost is a benefit for this horse. And again, for what I kind of liked is the horse has very little experience and yet has still run 2 for this field standards, very solid figures. So I definitely think the horse has every right to step up. And really, my angle just was, with the two horse kind of trying to go with two differing styles, kind of as Patrick touched on, could get away, and also has decent form, but also has a ton of experience to, not have a win yet. So no real excuses to get the job, not have gotten the job done, but it's a good price. And then my fear with the one, I mean, look, simply because of the figures, I feel like the horse could certainly hit the board in somewhere. So I had to keep the horse there. But really what worries me is, which makes sense with the figures. I mean, 41 early speed is frighteningly low. I mean, that means the horse is basically breaking out of the gate and taking a morning stroll until we get to the turn. And then it's like, oh, wait, we're in a race. I think I should get on with it. And I think that's going to cause a lot of problems because going back to our top pick, the 10, that's another horse that wants to close, but has more speed and will be a little bit closer. I know 51 is nothing eye-catching, but at least it's enough where you can say the horse might have a chance to close. So I think it's going to kind of go one of two ways. I think either Patrick's 2 gets away and wins, or one of the closers is able to get up there in time. My angle was to, why not put the closer and speed horses that I like the most in my top 2 and kind of hope one of them gets there. And just in case the one gets there, at least have it on my board.
Yeah, and I mean, I agree with you. Richard Avalar, Jonathan Thomas wins 50% on the drop. So out of the last 10 races in the past year, he's 5 for 10 on the drop with a 2.04 ROI. Paul Halloran, I completely agree with you. Obviously, we all have the horse on near the lead. Huge class drop with a jockey upgrade from going from a bug jockey to John Velasquez. So we do agree with you on the number 2. Patrick, I'll let you go through the rest of yours, and I'll finish up the stuff so we can get to our best bets real quick here. But Twirling Express, number 6, Todd Pletcher, Luis Saez.
Yeah, I'll hit on the 6. Tough trip last time. Has a major excuse out of that race. And, Todd's numbers going from maiden special weight to maiden claiming are Jonathan Thomas level, 32%. He does very well with it. And I look for this horse to get back to, one of those 70 buyer speed figures, which should fit right in with this group.
I agree. Just for me, the reason I didn't put in the number 6 was I was kind of thinking along the lines of, why is Todd throwing this horse down at Gulfstream in the summer if he believes that he can win at Saratoga? And I get the trying to run special weights, get that out of the way, but not have to drop him into claiming. But now it comes over to Saratoga and drops claiming. Nope, and not putting that comment up on the screen, Howard. That's PTSD in a nutshell there. But the only other horse I have is the number 7, the other Pletcher, or I would argue the first Pletcher. Nostalgic one, not even close. The first 2 takes the big drop for Pletcher, has been working decently over the Saratoga, Oklahoma turf course. I just think with the drop and second off the layoff for Todd at 3 years old, I think it could definitely give. The only thing that scares me was this horse took no money at all the first 2 starts, which for a Todd Pletcher, especially at Gulfstream in the winter, is a little bit eye opening.
And with IRAD on, wow, I didn't even.
That's. I'm sure there had to. I'm pretty sure there's a pretty decent favorite in that race, but still, 10-1 IRAD and Pletcher is a little bit eye opening. But hopefully, with the drop, Nostalgic one can get at least a little bit of a run underneath. I'm going 10-2-7. Patrick's going 2-6-1. Charlie's going 10-2-1. Guys, as Jim Miller is in the bullpen, so as we all know, we got to go. Otherwise, he's going to come after me. So. Charlie, your best bets on the weekend. Race number 9, a win on number 10, Ski Patrol, and the double 10-1. And your long shot bet is the race number 8, number 2, Midnight Trouble.
Yeah, so I'm trying to do a little Arlington-esque. What they used to do in their program, guys, is give like a little long shot Louis. Since I touched on the fact that I liked Midnight Trouble earlier at a price, again, in a race where it's wide open and the favorite hasn't done anything convincing, why not take a shot on an 8-1 horse with Tyler Gaffleone riding? And then, as I talked on earlier, Ski Patrol is my most confident bet. I think the 10 should be awfully tough in that spot. But to not just be boring and be a chalky and weasel and just take a regular win bet, I thought, why not do a double with the one who, again, we touched on. We'll obviously get the same trip, but, the way I see that race kind of playing out, the 1 and 5 go out together on the lead. I think the 5 gasses out and the 4 or 3 close up to pass late. But I think that double should come home with the 10-1. So those are my best bets for today, for that day.
Like I said, I love it. And obviously, like I said, I'll never talk you off a pretty good odds horse. So Charlie's best bets are those. Patrick's best bets are a race 7, pick 3, 3-5 with 8-9 with 8-10, and a race 10 win on the number 6, New York Thunder.
Yeah. So I'm going to start off with a pick 3. Stay away from those pick 5s as much as I can. Still early on in Saratoga. I'll start hitting those pick 5 sooner than later. But a pick 3. I like my opinions in the first 3 races, so I figured why not? And there's a couple decent long shots within there, so I'll go 2x2x2 with the pick 3, and then my win bet on New York Thunder because I think that horse is going to run big. So we'll see.
And you'll get the odds there. So I'll do, like I said, never talk you off of it. I love that you have a strong opinion in that 10th race, especially with a few pretty decent favorites. So good luck to you. I am going with 2 doubles as my best bets. As I talked about at the beginning of the show, the race that I looked at and wasn't supposed to, I went, I love the number 1 Swore in that spot. I'm going 1 with 5-7, race 6 double 1 with 5-7. And then in the race 9, I'm going 8-10, and then singling Drew's Gold in the Amsterdam. So hopefully we can get one of those doubles home. Like I said, I like Swore. My 2 best opinions are Swore and Drew's Gold on Friday. So hopefully one of the 2 can get home as our singles. But guys, thanks so much to everybody for joining for the Saratoga portion of this card. The chat was great today. And as always, the chat's great. But thank you to all, but don't go anywhere as we are going to talk about the Late Pick 4 at Hawthorne tomorrow with some very nice races. And to help do that, I need to bring in the big guns. So comes through again for the 2nd week in a row to the fun show, Jim Miller. Jim, how you doing, my friend?
That's right, the fun show for sure. So I'm happy to join you guys. I didn't even have time to grab a beer. Our last race went about 45 minutes ago today because we started later due to the heat. So I literally ran in the door, ran to the computer, but happy to jump on with you guys tonight.
Hey, that's dedication. I love it, Jim. And I did see that because we had one race in the 7th today or the 4th or something like
Medway
that.
Queen.
Yep. She ran about as well as I thought.
That was a tough race.
Yeah. And I was like, I thought the post time was like 3:45. And then next thing I know, it's like 6:02. And I'm like, what happened? But the heat was, as I moved up to Wisconsin, the heat was just as bad up here. So I completely get it. But Patrick, Charlie, you guys are welcome to stay on, but I feel I'll take you off screen. Just let me know in the chat if you guys want to stay on. But good luck to you guys on Saratoga, and I'm sure we'll talk later in the week.
Have a good one, guys.
Thank you.
Hey, guys.
Later, guys. All right, Jim. But as they say, me and you together, and we're going to go through it. But there are some very nice races tomorrow at Hawthorne. I'm just going to let you kind of give you the floor a little bit to talk about, as obviously you're the one that creates the races.
Well, and the one thing that's kind of cool about tomorrow, and we did the later post today due to the heat, but it actually worked out really well because we had a pick 5 carryover at the start of the card, so they bet an extra 65,000 into that pool. But handle was up about 400,000 from prior Wednesday, so maybe we learned a little bit something with the later posts and just kind of keeping the pace moving. Tomorrow, Del Mar comes into the mix, so because of that, they're at the top and the bottom of the hour. So we're going to go at 10-2. And then at 20 after, and we'll just stagger right with them the whole way through for the 7 races for us. Should be right back on the turf course tomorrow, which is a good thing. But yeah, we kind of set it up in a way where we think it'll be a really nice sequence, and having that grass racing definitely going to help.
Absolutely. And I mean, as we'll go through, I mean, there's besides, I mean, that what we're covering, there's a main special weight, an optional claiming, a listed stake, and then you're claiming 20,000. But again, a mile on the turf that everyone loves those type of races. So hopefully the handle continues to improve as Hawthorne's putting out better and better product these coming weeks.
And it's one of those things that's been interesting because we had the purse increase that had come up a couple of condition books ago, and you're seeing the better quality races fill, and it gives us the opportunity to use those better races. So Sunday's card is very similar. It's a lot of those allowance races, maiden allowance races, really nice fields, and we have the capabilities to be able to use it because you're doing a little bit better per scenario wise. You're doing a little bit better handle wise at Hawthorne. So that's been the thing that's benefited us this meet, and has definitely helped the horsemen here in Illinois.
I mean, absolutely. And obviously that's the big thing that at Hawthorne is what you guys want to do is help. Sadly, what is becoming, a smaller and smaller industry, which is the Illinois horse program. So anything to benefit them, obviously everyone in Illinois is on board with that. But the first race we're talking about, Jim, is the 4th race at Hawthorne. It's the 7 race card tomorrow. It's to start at 6:20 p.m. Central Time, 7:20 p.m. Eastern. It's a field of 7 going a mile and 70 yards on the dirt course. And like I said, I'm going to put your picks on the screen right now. And your top pick is the number 2 Ice Axe for Manny Perez and Javier Tavares.
Yeah, and it's an interesting race because there's 4 horses that are in the mix. The 2 Ice Axe, the 5 Maneuver, 6 Merlotti, and 7 Boone's Path. And it's just going to kind of come down to pace more than anything else, because Boone's Path should show a little bit of speed on the outside. But with a couple of the first timers and lightly raced horses in there, I think they keep things honest up front. And you see the progression of the races for Ice Axe over the course of those last few starts. They've all been pretty solid since coming over to Hawthorne. They've all been 2 turns, but the horses gradually improve in each and every start out. And that last out came running at him late in the lane. Minnesota Moon was a horse that ran a really nice race in that spot. That one's facing winners actually on Sunday's card. And I think Ice Axe just gets a really good trip from that second flight and should come running at him in the lane.
Which I agree with. I have this horse second. I had the number 6 on top for John Wainwright. Which I'm sure, which we'll talk about next. And we had the same top 3 actually in this spot. But I agree with you. The number 2 Ice Axe seems like he's finally getting good at the right time for Manny Perez after switching to the Perez barn from the Dorochenko barn. He's actually improved significantly. So if he can continue to get the right trip in this spot with Tavares up, I think he's extremely interesting. And real quick, Jim, before we move on to the number 6, I have a comment in here from Richard Avalar. He says, who is Mr. Miller's favorite horse of all time? And I know it's a very loaded question for a guy like yourself being in the horse industry so long, but he's putting you on the spot.
No, and he's not really putting me on the spot. So there's 2 different horses for me. One, when I was growing up and racing, you'll have to look way back to even find this horse. There was a horse by the name of Filipino Boy, who was a cheap $5,000 claimer, who used to get 25 to 30 lengths back every single time. And with the long Hawthorne stretch, would always come charging late in the lane. So that was the horse that first off, I really kind of fell in love with. And then more recently, it's interesting because it's a horse that the stake is actually named after for the handicap on tomorrow's card, and that's Work All Week. And for those that know, when I wasn't at Hawthorne, I spent a brief time working for Midwest Thoroughbreds. And when I was working for Midwest Thoroughbreds was right at the time that Work All Week was making his debut and getting his career started. So I was able to help kind of chart out that path for Work All Week, all the way to the point that you saw him progress to be a Breeders' Cup Sprint champion. So this was a horse that I knew early on at the start was going to be a fantastic racehorse. So to watch his progression throughout and now to get the name a race after him has been very cool as well.
I mean, that's just, I love those types of stories. And hopefully, like I said, that's my goal with that you see on the back wall. Hopefully you can get one of those up on the wall. But sorry to derail the conversation.
No, that's fine.
I just wanted to bring him in real quick. But the number 6, Merlotti, Wainwright, Julio Felix. And this is another one that has the numbers, just hasn't been able to put it together.
Yeah, and consistency-wise, this is a horse that has been pretty consistent based on the numbers. You see that race at Churchill Downs, that was the best speed figure. That was the 1-turn race, though. So you're going 2 turns in that last down. Merlotti chased the pace in there, and I think probably needed that start. You're coming back for the second start back here off the layoff, second start back of the meet here at Hawthorne, and this is one that after you had those races early on the meet, and then you went to Churchill and then kind of come back, I think they just need to kind of stay at home at Hawthorne. And I think this is a horse that should be able to rate up close to the pace, chase the entire way, definitely gets the jump on Ice Axe in this spot, and we'll see what kind of a price Merlotti is as well.
Yeah, and obviously, like you have this horse at 5-2. The number 7, Boone's Path, who's on the outside, you have nowhere, and I had nowhere either. Just, I mean, 0 for 13, it's a very hard horse to trust. And realistically, these numbers back at Hawthorne in December fit, but the numbers on dirt as of late, I mean, just not very good at all.
Here's the thing that's interesting. I mean, Manny Esquivel is riding at Hawthorne this week because Horseshoe Indianapolis has taken a week off. And everything that he's come in and ridden, he's ridden very well. He won the stake today aboard Au revoir for trainer Chris Block. He knows this track. This is the track that he got started at when he was a bug rider. And Boone's Path, it's one of those horses where I think what it was they showed some promise early on. They said, okay, we're Kentucky bred, so we're going to run for some of those monster pots at Kentucky and see if we can be competitive. And then they found out they just weren't able to be competitive enough to get into the mix. Come back over to Hawthorne. I think the horse is going to take some action because it can show some speed. But like you mentioned, when you're looking at 0 for 13, it's really hard to endorse on top. And I do think this horse will probably be bet down to the favorite in this spot.
I was going to say, it might even be harder to endorse.
Yeah.
The horse is going to be 8-5.
Exactly.
So the last horse we have in this spot is Maneuver for another Manny Perez runner for Glockenberg, but only second time out, so it could show some improvement.
And the thing is, a lot of these times when you see these sprinters stretching out to go 2 turns, these are horses that are likely to show some speed. And Manny Perez, he will keep both horses in and he will work one with the other because it is the same owner. So if you think Ice Axe is going to be the best horse, then maybe Maneuver is the one that's going to go out there and kind of push Boone's Path along early on and try to keep that pace honest up front. If the horse runs on, that's fine. If it doesn't, then Ice Axe will come running at him late. Manny has done this numerous times on the meet where both horses stay in. One of them runs well, and the other one still hangs around for a share. He's had himself a pretty good meet, but I could see that being the reason why Maneuver's in this spot.
Easily could be. And, whether the horse should show a little bit more speed than last time out, especially. But it was really interesting. Yeah, obviously, this horse being Street Cry and Ira Causeway, they tried to throw him on the turf last time.
Right.
Ended up running really well in the dirt. So I'm sure that's Manny's idea for this spot. But Jim's going 265 in race number 4 at Hawthorne. The next race, Jim, is race 5. Mine and Howard's favorite type of race, the turf sprint, going 5.5 on the turf for fillies, optional claiming of 40,000. And the morning line favorite is the number 4, right? My Lips Are Sealed for Chris Block, who you are going with in this spot.
I'm going with in this spot. And the thing that I'm trying to figure out is this is a move that isn't your typical Chris Block move because the horse is proven around 2 turns on the turf. And he says, okay, I'm going to try the horse at 5.5. Now, it's paid off for him with a couple of other horses earlier on in the meet, so maybe you get the setup for My Lips Are Sealed to settle back early on and come running at him late in the lane, because I think that's going to be the style for this horse. The question is going to be the amount of pace in this race. Just a wonder, maybe show speed. I think Juju Special Girl can show speed, the Lip Liner, and Plus Chic. So with 4 of them possibly going out there, I do think My Lips Are Sealed just kind of sits back early on, comes running at him late in the lane, and I like that Chris Amy stays aboard. He's one of the strongest finishers on the Chicago circuit. He's ridden this horse well in the last couple, and I think he gets enough pace to run down in this spot.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with you by any means. I actually went with the number 2, Juju Special Girl, who hopefully can show be tactical in this type of spot for Armando Hernandez, and I believe that's Walter Rodriguez, who you don't see too much on the Illinois circuit, but he's a very nice rider out. That runs for Wesley Ward in Kentucky, especially in the spring. But I thought the number 2 might be up close and hopefully could get first run on a lot of these other horses.
Well, and what's interesting is Walter Rodriguez is riding a couple of horses for Armando Hernandez because he's going to ride the stake as well. But you figure, you look at this horse, okay, you get a really talented bug rider, you get a horse that's proven at the distance on the grass, and this is a horse that just overall has that speed where they can go out there and contend early on, battle the entire way around. And if anybody's going to get the jump out of the 4 pace horses, I think this is the one that can do so and may even get overlooked at a little bit of a price.
Hey, I agree. And that's what I saw. That 92 price on a horse like Juju Special Girl is what really intrigued me. But you have the number 7 in
Plus
second,
Chic,
Plus Chic for Michelle Boyce and Sentinel and Alexis Sentinel. Excuse me, I could not think of her name. But Plus Chic.
The thing about Plus Chic is you look at the recent starts on the main track and they've been okay. You get back to those turf starts, especially last fall. That one on October the 16th was a good effort. It was at this level. That was a solid field. Sharp Hero, the horse that ran third, came back and ran a really big race today. And you're looking at Plus Chic being a horse that has enough tactical speed and that outside draw with the long run down the backside into the turn. I think rates close. I don't think they go for the front. I think maybe they tuck in and lay second in that spot. And you get the jump on a horse like My Lips Are Sealed. But I do think you're going to get every bit of the 7-2 on Plus Chic as well.
I agree. And obviously those races back last year at Hawthorne definitely fit in this type of spot. And whether she shows as much speed as she did that in that race is the question. But getting Alexis Sentinel, who's done really, really well at this meet at Hawthorne, I think is only an upgrade from the other jockeys she's been running with. So I really do also like Plus Chic in this spot as well.
Yeah, and Michelle Boyce's horses have been really kind of heating up. Everything in the barn has been running very well now that they're getting those second and third starts out. So I could see this horse running in much improved race also.
I agree with you completely. You have the number 2, the last race as your number, or no, Juju Special Girl, which we already talked about. Excuse me. I thought you had that horse nowhere, but I cannot see apparently.
You're fine. It's Bettin N Boozin. Maybe you've had a couple. You're okay.
Hey, I mean, I'm already, this is number 3, so I guess we're going too fast. But my apologies. But the Work All Week is the next race. It's the featured race on the card at Hawthorne on Thursday. Purse of $75,000 going 6.5 furlongs on the dirt. And you are going with the number 4 on top, WW Candy for Max Quinones, I believe.
Yep, Max Quinones. Yep.
Quinones. Okay. And Abel Escano.
Here's the thing about this race. This is a really talented bunch. You know, Kevad on the inside is a very good racehorse. Tape to Tape is a very fast horse from the barn of Larry Ravelli. But WW Candy has been solid at Hawthorne. You look at those last couple of starts, they've been really good efforts. That was a big performance in that start two back. That was a really solid field that day. Settled back early on, and they went fast in that spot. 21-4, 45-1, and everything set up nicely. Well, the last out got some pace to chase again, and again came running at him late in the lane. And I think they're going to go just as fast in this spot. But the key is the distance for this race, Kyle. If it was at 3/4 of a mile, I would worry a little bit about WW Candy getting up with some of these really fast racehorses. But at 6.5 furlongs, that was what Ovar needed today to get up in time to catch Sharp Hero late in the lane. It could be what WW Candy needs as well to run by horses like Kavad, Tape to Tape, maybe even Devil's Tower.
And I actually didn't have this horse anywhere, but that brings up a very good point, is this horse has been only running at 6, and you'll see a lot of races, losing by a half, losing by a neck, losing by, 2.5, something like that, giving that horse a little bit extra ground. I think WW Candy will relish that extra half furlong and definitely could get up going down the lane.
Yep. And then you go to the outside. I mean, the thing is, with 6 Tape to Tape and the 7 Devil's Tower, those are both two horses that are worth the look. The 7 Devil's Tower, here's one thing that's been interesting. This owner, Antonio Donato, has made a lot of these high price claims at Churchill Downs, 30,000, 40,000, 50,000, and they're immediately coming over to Hawthorne and running big races. And you look at this one, claimed for 40,000 on May the 26th, comes back, gets out of jail, and all of a sudden wins that optional 40 and posts a number. That's the same number as WW Candy. Yep. And it was with a really good stalking trip. But they've been doing this time and again. You get Walter Rodriguez aboard again. So this is a guy that's coming to ride for this barn. And this is a horse that I think you're going to get that 3-1. So if you're looking at an $8, $9 horse, it's definitely worth going to. But I think Devil's Tower is a horse that can figure. And then the one right next to it, the 6 Tape to Tape. This is a horse that's very fast. This is a horse from the barn of Larry Ravelli. Those starts at Prairie Meadows, probably wins this race. The start at Oaklawn Park probably wins that race as well. Now the Presque Isle start and that start at Hawthorne against the optional 6250 brings some others into the mix here. And because there's some other pace in the race, I think Tape to Tape wings it from the start on the get-go. But if Kavad goes from the inside, that's the one thing that could push things along. At in the 6.5 furlongs could compromise the chances as well.
Which I completely agree with. And that's why I like Devil's Tower a lot. I think he's a little more tactical than a horse like Tape to Tape, to where he could set off the pace with Walter Rodriguez and hopefully get first run on all the horses behind him. But Antonio Donato, I believe, Anthony Donato, as he was also known as, he used to do this a lot with Rivas, with Mike Rivas, where he would claim these horses in Kentucky and then bring them to Arlington or Arlington for the summer, Hawthorne for the winter, and he'd put them in these optional claiming spots and be very, very competitive. As sadly, like I said, the Illinois product has gone down in recent years. So you claim these horses from Kentucky, bring them over, and they end up running really well. So it's not his first rodeo with this type of race, with these type of races either.
And he's been smart to do it, because right now with the purses going up, it's one of those, okay, if you take this horse, claim it for 40. If you run for the optional 40 and they claim the horse for the 40,000 in that first start out, and you get a good chunk of the purse, okay, you've turned a profit. So you've done your job. But when you have some of these horses like this, where it gets through that last start and doesn't get claimed, and now all of a sudden you're running in a stakes race and you have a chance to get black type as well, it's a really good move for a horse that eventually then he could come out well ahead and then try to turn the horse around, and maybe even you drop it for an optional 35 or 30 and somebody claims the horse and you get another purse as well.
Hey, I mean, absolutely. Trust me, there's nothing wrong with catching a piece of a purse. That's for damn sure.
Right.
But the last race on the card at Hawthorne is a claiming 20,000, going a mile on the turf course, and the morning line favorite is the number 5, I believe, a lukewarm favorite. The seven charge account for Fausto Gutierrez, coming up from Gulfstream Park, gets Tavares 3-1, and that's the horse you're going with in this spot.
Yeah, and I think you get the 3-1. Here's the thing: Fausto Gutierrez has sent 4 horses to Hawthorne on the meet. 2 of them have won, and then you have a couple that have finished third. I think it's actually 5 horses now. But Charge Account is a horse that I think is probably at its best on the turf. You see those starts on the grass, the 76 figures and that. A lot of them were last summer in New York. But then the race at Gulfstream 2-back I thought was a pretty solid race. Should have the ability to rate close to the pace, and there's really not a whole lot of speed in here. The one Prancy Pants is probably loose and lonely on the lead. Charge Account is a horse that I think rates in the second flight. Command Point is going to be right there as well, but those are the two that are going to have to try to catch the pace setter. And I think Charge Account, off those last couple of starts, you get another good finishing rider in Javier Tavares in the saddle, and I think this is a horse that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, winning at Saratoga going a mile, just a year ago at this spot, obviously for 20,000 claiming, but for Thomas Morley, then gets claimed by Maker. and then gets claimed by Fausto next out race. Hasn't shown necessarily the exact form that he showed at Saratoga, but I mean, even this race at Gulfstream could be good enough to win in this type of spot.
Yeah, and the thing about it, the turf's going to have a little bit of give. This is a horse that's good on a wet turf course as well, but it'll probably be listed as good tomorrow after being off the grass today with the rain that we had. It's only going to help the chances of this horse.
I completely agree with you. You have the number 5 Command Point in second. You kind of touched on a little bit for Block and Esquivel, but he's another very logical horse in this spot.
And you see all the races on the turf. They're usually pretty consistent races, but you see that race 2 back. I was standing on the turf course watching that race, and Prancy Pants went cruising right by us the first time and went cruising by us the second time. Command Point had every chance to run by Prancy Pants in the lane and didn't do so in that spot. Now, you looked at the next start out going the mile, and they went really quick for the opening quarter, and Prancy Pants was pushed along in there, and that was the thing that compromised that one, and it set things up nicely for Command Point. This field's more like that race on June the 4th, where Prancy Pants might be able to cruise along, maybe back down the pace a little bit and kick away in the end and at least hang around. And I think Command Point's just going to have to get in contact a little bit sooner in this spot. But a repeat of that last performance would put the horse right there.
Like I said, you're taking all the words out of my mouth, Jim. I love it because you're seeing the race exactly the way I am. Just that's the one thing that scared me was this horse has been, 21 and 21 right. Flat last time out.
Going a mile, right?
Very, very quick, even especially for horses at like this level. So that 20,000 claiming, you'll probably see closer to that 22 and 4, which you said I agree with. So hopefully Command Point can sit, like you said, a little bit closer. And the last horse you have in the spot is Prancy Pants, as you touched on again a little bit, but this one looks like going to be the speed towards the speed. Excuse me.
He's been a different racehorse this me. You look at the last 3 starts. I mean, all of a sudden this horse turned into a racehorse. It seems because you have a 68 up on the turf in that start where the horse beat Command Point. You came back, you had that race where the horse couldn't make the lead when they went 21 and change 46, but the horse still held on to finish second in there. And then the last out again, just dominant on the slop in a race that came off the turf. This is a different racehorse. Things have turned around. It's kind of coincided with that move to the barn of trainer John Whithour, because you look, you go back 6 starts. Okay, horse was with Oscar Sanchez. All of a sudden moves over to Whithour's barn and has moved up. And John Whithour has had a tremendous meet. This is a guy that's stabled down at Fairmount Park, shipping horses up time and again to Hawthorne and running well. You're stepping up from a 10 claimer in for 20, but Command Point's doing the same. That's the one thing where I think Charge Account has a little bit of an advantage over those two.
I do agree with that. And the nice thing is, Whithour knows what he's doing with this horse, and he's not necessarily throwing him up into 20K just because he wants a little bit of a shot at a better purse. This horse, Prancy Pants, has done exactly what you need from a horse at the 10 claiming level and even lower than that to be able to warrant a bump up in class for this type of horse. And if he can get either, a decent lead or at least decent pace in front of him, he'll get first run. And I think Prancy Pants is extremely interesting in this.
I think he's going to get 23 and change for the opening quarter. If he can go out there and get 47 to the half, he could very easily steal the race.
Which is what, what we talked about with the other horses in this race, where you're not going to get that 21 flat, especially in a race like this, where there doesn't seem to be a lot of pace on paper. But Jim, your pick 4 ticket, we're going to switch back here to Just Us full screen, and a little bit more than last week, but still very, very hittable ticket and a very, very playable one for 36 bucks.
Well, and it's funny, I want to touch on the horse last week that I singled, a horse by the name of Aviano, because it was something you very rarely see. The horse came out of the gate and flat out refused to run, and they vetted the horse out after, and they come to find out that they just said the horse had really bad feet, and the jock said it was almost like the horse was just trying to lift his feet and just didn't seem to like the surface. So that's something that you want to make a note on for Aviano, even if you see the horse back at the races. But I kind of figured you were going to have a softer turf course. The horse would have relished it. Flat out refused to run. And you very rarely see that. The outrider had to grab the horse and walk him right off the course. All right, now looking at this ticket, no singles for me, but there's not going to be any real heavy favorites in this spot either. So if you can just defeat 1 or 2 favorites along the way, you're going to get a nice return. It's a $36 ticket. We have a 15% takeout, but you see my numbers there. The 4 logical horses in the first leg in race number 4, 2, 5, 6, 7. Race 5 is 2, 4, 7. The stake in race 6 is going to be the 4, 6, and 7. And then just too deep, I'm leaving Prancy Pants off my ticket. I'm just going to go with the 5 Command Point and the 7 Charge Account. I think they're a little bit classier, and I think one of those 2 runs 1-2 in the finale.
Like I said, I love it because although you're not taking very many stands in this type of ticket, you're getting to the point where as you stated, there's not many, very heavy favorites. So even if, you get one of the favorites in one legs, if 4-1 92 versus a 7-2, you're still bumping up that ticket extremely well, and especially for a track with low takeout as Hawthorne, as you stated, 15%, that could mean all the difference.
Yeah, it could mean all the difference. You're looking at a track that is playing very evenly too. So that's the thing that helps. You'll have a dry racetrack a little bit later on the day. And I'll be curious to see, Kyle, it may be something that benefits the bettors that play Hawthorne all the time, because again, it's just going to be kind of us and Del Mar later on in the day. So with staggering that, you're going to have the money from the California pools coming in. That's going to be beneficial as well. And maybe it boosts up something like the Late Pick4 pool, where you can get a little bit of a better return for your payout as well.
Absolutely. And I'm gonna end the show here, Jim, with a very nice comment from one of our most loyal viewers, who's Charles B. Says, Jim, love to see the collaboration with Indy and Hawthorne. Feel great cards. It's fantastic for the sport. And as you said, a lot of these horsemen that when Indy has a week off or something like that, they come up to Hawthorne and help you guys out in running. Because I know a lot of people that run down at Indy used to be Illinois people as well.
And one of the things that's interesting is we have a great working relationship with the horsemen down at Horseshoe, Indianapolis. Chris Polzin, the racing secretary there, was the assistant racing secretary at Hawthorne for a long time, was the racing secretary at Arlington. Eric Halsham, the general manager down at Horseshoe, Indianapolis, is great too. We coordinate. We'll text back and forth and say, hey, what are you looking at for post times today? Is there weather coming? Are we going to speed up? Or are we going to slow down? But if you've noticed, all meet long, we've never run on top of Horseshoe, Indianapolis. And it's because we do coordinate when you have the two midweek cards, and they do a great job all the time with their midweek cards. We want to make sure we avoid them because it's only going to help both racetracks.
Well, and that's what it's a crazy concept, right? Not to run on top of other racetracks and, to get more handle for yourself. It's a crazy concept, but it seems like a lot of people don't take that into effect nowadays.
And it's knowing who you are. I mean, we know that we're not going to go up against Saratoga today. We're not going to go up against Del Mar. You're not going to be in that point where you can battle with them because you're going to lose. So if you can stagger, stay 10 minutes away, it's going to benefit, because then they may look up and say, hey, I'm going to play a multi-race wager there. And then you have them tied in for 2, 3, 4 races. And it's something where you can kind of maybe expose your product to a new bettor also.
I mean, and just the fact, obviously I'm an Illinois guy, but I mean, you do that from experience, right? You're sitting at the OTB and your race goes off and you're like, oh man, what am I going to do for the next 20 minutes? Right. Oh, you know what? Hawthorne's up there. It's got 10 minutes to post. I'll look at that. So like you said, it's a crazy concept, but it really does help. It really does help your racetrack. And it's nice that you guys have a working relationship, because I went down to Indy for my first time when they had the Indiana Derby, and they put on a great product there as well as Hawthorne does. So it's an absolutely great thing to see. And Howard, and again, sorry, Jim, we'll keep you on a little bit more, but we'll end with this one, kind of give you guys a little bit to see the floor to you, Jim, to kind of highlight what's coming up. Howard says, and is there any contests coming up at Hawthorne?
I mean, there's always contests coming up. We're in the midst of another online qualifier that provides NHC seats as well. And we have contests all year long. The big contest that everybody wants to start focusing on is the one that surrounds Thanksgiving weekend, because there's so many seats on the line at Hawthorne. We do real money contests. There's no buy-in for any of these. Keep what you make. There's NHC seats. We've given away seats for Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge in the past, the Pegasus Challenge, all sorts of things. But when you can come in and play the tracks that you play, that's the thing. We don't stick you with a certain track that you have to bet. It's not $2 win place. It's betting a bankroll. So if you want to check out the contest setup and the schedule, go to HawthorneRacecourse.com. We have a tab right there for the contest. It'll give you all the dates for the contest, kind of tell you the format as well. And if you have any questions, just hit me up on Twitter at Hawthorne Jim, and I'll answer them for you as well. Absolutely.
Jim's always available. He does a very nice job of replying to anyone that reaches out to him on Twitter. So yeah, if you have any questions, please reach out to him. And I'm a frequent of the contest, Jim. I love the format that you guys do. And I'm a very, as my whole group is, as I'm sure you know, very big advocates for the live money stuff. And it's not only, there's no restrictions at all. Right. You can play tracks, you can play different wagers, whatever you want. It kind of leaves the floor to the player and gives a lot of openness, which I really enjoy.
And that's the goal. Play it as you would a day at the races. And that's what you want to do. Go out there. If you're going to bet, some of our contests are $300, some are $500. If you're going to bet close to $500 for a day at the races anyway at the OTB, get in the contest. It's free. We're not going to make you pay another $50 or $100 or whatever to get in the contest. It's free. You just sign up, start playing, and then you can go from there. And if you have a good day, maybe you get that seat for the NHC.
That's what I was going to say. You know, maybe if you have a good day at the track like you would normally, maybe you'll be taking maybe you'll get a free trip to Vegas.
Yep.
That's exactly right. But Jim, like I said, thanks so much for coming on. Greatly appreciate you guys and everything you do over to Hawthorne, and the fact that you literally ran into your house after the races. I greatly appreciate it. So like I said, thank you very much for joining, Jim. It's always a fun time when you're on.
You got it. And hopefully everybody can tune in tomorrow. Again, late post 4:50 p.m. Central Time. We'll stagger with Delmar for all 7 races. A good card. I do expect we're back on the grass. So hopefully everybody can tune in for the racing action tomorrow.
Absolutely. Don't want to miss Hawthorne, especially tomorrow, as they run some very, very nice races out there and with some very low takeout wagers for you to play on. That's always the big key. For Jim Miller, director of racing. Nice Mike Tyson moment. But
3 drinks. 3 drinks.
For the director of racing at Hawthorne Racecourse, and for your host, Kyle Roscoe, it's been episode 32 of Bettin N Boozin here on the HHH Racing Podcast. For everyone playing Hawthorne tomorrow and Saratoga on Friday, crush your bets, everybody. Have a good night.